I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Jules Sage, joined by the author of The Dark Shadows Daybook, Patrick McCray. My buddy, he is
Where?
here.
Where? Oh, God. Hi.
Yeah, we're here to discuss more 1841 parallel time. We're down to the last few episodes here. This is episode 1243. Holy heck, man. By the way, the last few of these episodes are all narrated by Grayson Hall. So she narrates this one as well. I really like how they, the fact that you finally get Bramwell, who's in the room, he's stuck there, and Catherine is, pretty much going to be the one who doesn't want him in there. She's pleading for him to let him out. That doesn't happen. Um, I I really love John Carlin in this episode because he feels like he just, it looks like he's just ready to deck Morgan at any moment.
Not soon enough.
I know.
I like it when he guarantees that he's gonna try Morgan's on. He's gonna open up a can of whoop ass on him if Melanie doesn't get better. And I guarantee it.
Yeah, he pretty much says that if Melanie doesn't get better, that he's going to hold him responsible. Meaning, there's going to be a fight, and Morgan takes offense to it. But it's like I'm sort of with I'm with John Carlin's character Kendrick on this. It's like, dude, like he was willing to go into the room. Really, what do you think of Morgan? So Morgan's heel turn, it's here. I mean, it happened in the pretty much the prior episode, but it is full on here.
It is full on, and I want you to think of something in a larger context. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, Keith is great. We love him. But what's even more amazing is that if you think about the beginning of the show, it is full of villains. Even Burke Devlin, is a villain, kind of. Yeah. And Liz with her weird agendas and secrecy is a villain, and Carolyn's doing God knows what, inspiring knife fights and so on, and kind of liking it. David's trying to kill everybody he can find. Mrs. Johnson is a spy. Man. And all you have is Vicky Winters in a sea of villainy. And now Collinwood is completely reversed. Hang on, I'm gonna do something for the light here. Hold on. There we go. Now Collinwood's completely reversed. If you really think about it, it's a house full of heroes. Yeah. Grayson Hall, sort of, with one villain at the heart of it. Really, because Morgan, or Brutus rather, he's kind of like, he just goes with the furniture. Yeah. He's a built-in. We accept that he's there. I don't really know if he's a villain. He's more like a force of nature at this point. Yeah. Morgan is really the villain, and so Collinwood has completely flipped.
Yeah. I agree with you that you're right. It's a house full of, you could sort of, like, throughout the entire arc, there's characters you could sort of put on the fence, like Julia, and even Flora to a degree sometimes. I feel sometimes they're meant to be more heelish, but they're not.
Yeah.
But with the heels, it's like there's for the baby faces, there's Catherine, there's Quentin. And really, for the biggest part of this arc, Morgan is a baby face. I mean, he does try to help. You know what I mean? He does try to help Quentin solve the room. They're teaming up to try to find information and facts.
Yeah, well, of course, you're well paid by the Keith Prentice estate to say these things.
I am. I cash my checks nightly. Anyway, no. But sorry. But I really think they do a good job of turning him heel in these episodes because there's been this tension between. I mean, that's his only real rival. It is Bramwell. Bramwell and Morgan, Keith Prentice and Jonathan Fritt have done a hell of a job building this rivalry. They both deserve a lot of credit with the writers.
Yes, they
And
do.
where I give ultimate credit, though, is Keith Prentice making the 180-degree. It's not a complete 180-degree turn, but here's where
60.
It's it somewhat is to me, because when he starts laughing like a madman, that's when he's gone. The old Morgan is gone. He's dead. He's never coming back. Um, the kind, caring Morgan who gave a care about other people and what they thought about him, that's gone.
I think he's planning on just putting people in the room one at a time.
I wouldn't.
It's like, hey Kendrick, there's some candy in there.
Yeah.
I left some milk duds in there. They're free to whoever finds them. Oh, really? Slam. Hey, there are no milk duds in here.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, because I mean, he in the final episode he is trying to not only kill Bramwell but Kendrick as well. There's a big fight between the three of them, where Bramwell and Kendrick are teaming up. We'll get into that in another day. With this, I give Keith Prentice a lot of credit because he is now your heel. It doesn't take away from what Lewis Edmonds Brutus Collins does. If anything, it's a compliment to it. It's really, really good, especially once you start seeing what happens in the room with Catherine and Bramwell.
Keep going. I have an observation.
When you see what happens in the room with Catherine and Bramwell, and to what Keith Prentice's character Morgan has planned if they survive.
I like that the room doesn't go goofy at first.
Right.
And the Bramwell's kind of sitting in a chair waiting. It's like he's I think he's angry that he doesn't have some Sudoku or something to pass the time, or the TV Guide crossword puzzle, because you can always solve those. He needs something, and it's like, oh, Brutus shows up. Thank God. All right, Brutus, you're not going to get me. Thank you for giving me something to do. And then when Julia comes to the door and says, whatever you do, don't touch the corpses. And the weird thing is that if this character, if the character of Bramwell had come from reality rather than the world of soap operas, he would probably say, of all the things in an allegedly haunted room that I don't plan on doing, it's touching a corpse.
Yeah.
I'm not going to enter any corpse touching contests tonight. If anyone tries to rope me into one, I'll lose on purpose. I ain't touching that corpse. But instead, he's like, oh, really? Huh. Well, thanks for telling me. That's good news. I was planning on just touching them all over. Ooh, I'm a lonely man in this room. Catherine who? But it's good advice, but it's strange advice.
It's funny, when I was rewatching this episode earlier today, my son called it the dead people room. I'm like, yes, it is. And I still like how the bodies look. And you're right. I love how Bramwell is getting ready to touch James Forsythe, but then you hear Julia's voice. Don't touch the corpses. Don't touch the dead bodies.
Really, Julia? He looks like he'd like me to touch him. I mean, not in a weird way, but he seems lonely. I was just going to pat him on the shoulder or something, or tussle one of his hairs left, or something like that. I don't know. Get these cobwebs off him. So you want me to touch? No, don't touch the corpse. I'm sorry, I can't hear you very clearly. I'm supposed to touch the... No, don't touch the corpse.
I like how they use the candles in the room too. They use them for effect. Really, really
good. Lighting them. Who's lighting the candles?
Well, who's lighting the candles? Well, when we don't see him, I think that either A, Jonathan Frid is lighting them, or just someone's lighting them when we don't see it.
So now that's a funny idea that literally Jonathan Frid is also a character in this. This soon-to-be out-of-work Canadian actor has found himself in parallel time. And, well, my character's going to be in the dark. I'm going to light these candles and just stay out of the way by the cameraman.
Well, right. I mean, have you ever heard, like, in the Evil Dead series, Bruce Campbell actually did a lot of behind-the-scenes work. Like, he's the one who pushes the raft, helps push the raft across the creek or pond, whatever it is, in the opening of Evil Dead when they're doing the. So.
Do you know you have to be filming an independent film like in the middle of Tennessee, which is where they filmed it. They filmed it near where I live, to get away with that, because in New York, even then, the unions had such an iron grip on things. There's a very good chance Cy Tomashoff was not allowed to like move objects around on the set. That had to be a union guy. Yeah, a friend of mine was a set. He designed a set for a Broadway show, and he got in huge trouble with the unions because he decided to switch out a lamp or something one day, like during rehearsal. Yeah. And oh my God, he said I got in huge trouble. I got yelled at. I got threatened and all this other stuff. And so yeah, it's not like that in New York or LA. Once you get to a certain level, you can't do squat.
But I do think it's either A, that one of the producers or cameramen, or it's just Jonathan Frid himself when they're not showing him lighting the candles. Why not?
Union rules is why. Now you get beaten up by Teamsters, Jewel. Have you ever been beaten up by Teamsters? It's not fun.
No, but yeah, listen, what are they going to do? Come in there and start kicking Dave Curtis around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're. I mean, you don't know what you're talking. I'm not saying you don't know what you're talking about.
I know.
No, but I mean, you're entering a whole new world of pain if you go against the unions.
I just think it was one of the behind the scenes people lighting the candles when they like cut away and they cut back.
I hope so.
So the candles didn't go out. I don't literally think it was Jonathan, though that would be interesting. It would be interesting if it was him doing that. But again, they could have, like you said, they could have gotten in trouble for that if that's the case.
He's finally earning an honest living at last. Jonathan's made something of himself.
What's your favorite scene in this episode?
Oh, the whole episode.
Yeah.
It really is. It works so well together. I think, when Morgan gets Catherine into the room and she's now stuck in there. I think that don't touch the corpses. I really like that. I mean, this is an overwhelming series of episodes because not only is it a big story that's coming to an end, but it's also it's a bigger story coming. It's Dark Shadows coming to an end. And so I think it's hard to watch these like you would watch regular episodes because the truth of it is just so overwhelming. And I have a tough time, before I think earlier I was talking to a friend of mine about, the fact that there were only 3 channels, maybe UHF, and that this stuff wasn't going to ever be seen again, and that you're having to record everything with your mind and your imagination. That's a huge idea. And so there is a very profound experience within all of this. And of course, there were profound experiences that were happening all the time. The moon landings were going on. They were being faked somewhere, and so you really had to take all of them. They weren't being faked; they were real. And that the immediacy of living television, truly living television, was electric for people, and the end of Dark Shadows was part of that.
Yeah, I really like my favorite scene when they're talking about why they're asking Morgan why he did what he did, and he turns and he sees Catherine and goes, "Why don't you ask the little mother?" And it's I love Laura Parker's reaction to it too. Um, just a great tense moment in that room, and at first Julia's like, "Oh, congratulations," and then she's like, then it goes deathly silent again. Really great job by everybody. I love the close up of Kendrick, John Carlton. He's sort of giving this look like, "Wait, what's going on?" And they obviously they all put two together that it's not Morgan's child, it's Bradwell's child. But what a great episode! Everything in this is just Morgan is finally your full blooded heel. What a, Keith Prentice, he lot of talent.
I want to point out too that television, when Dark Shadows went on, was in what I think of as an antiquated era. There's still a lot of black and white, obviously, on television. Yeah. 1966 would be the first year that NBC went to all color programming, at least in prime time. Because NBC was tied into RCA, and so they had a reason to go to all color programming to sell RCA TVs. But you had all of that. You had all of that going on, and at the same time, by the time Dark Shadows would end, we were All in the Family was about to come on the air, and I think of that as a very different era of TV. I mean, they almost overlapped. Sanford and Son, this black sitcom dealing with poverty in the Watts area, right around the Watts riots. Very timely. It was about to go on the air, and MASH was about to go on the air. And when I think back to Dark Shadows, I think of it as being part of an earlier part of television, and I think of all of that as being the modern era of television. Modern era, it sort of dates me, but I do, where we're finally talking about relevant things, and it's no longer Leave It to Beaver. And it's just amazing to me when you look at this episode and the issues of pregnancy, infidelity with consequences. And Catherine's also like, gee, I wonder what Morgan thinks he's onto. What's he know the truth about?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the pregnancy. They're not that bright here. They're not that bright.
They're not.
But still, that they're talking about it. And Fred's got long hair, And what a different world we are sliding into. And this is Dark Shadows that has one foot firmly in an incredibly different era of time. And I that's really exciting. That is really, really, really cool.
Yeah, I think with the whole note thing that they, what could he be talking about? And then they're like, oh, now, what do you think he's talking about? It's one of those moments where it's like, you could look at Catherine and say, oh, it could just be pregnancy brain where she's just, drawing a blank. Because they do cover this, though, when they say, well, no one told, neither of them told. And then you learn that they learned that Morgan followed her. We knew Morgan followed her. We saw it, and because they do it, the recap is really, really well done. But I think the fact that, again, 1841 has this very, very adult theme. I mean, throughout this entire arc, every episode is adult oriented. Sure, we get supernatural fun, don't get me wrong, but the seriousness of the adult talk, it adds to the realism to the supernatural effect, because we're getting these tense moments of each character, and how each character, and really the relationship that where Keith Prentice's Morgan Collins understands why Brutus did what he did.
Yes.
And it's really important to him to sort of hit that. Really, Morgan isn't so much Morgan anymore. Well, he is. He's a modern day Brutus. He's become Brutus in every way.
Oh, definitely. You know, he's being driven crazy by, by infidelity.
Yeah, absolutely. He's completely batshit. Completely. Really, really well done by Keith Prentice.
There's a lot of guano present.
Yeah, yes. I really like Grayson Hall too in this episode. She goes, "We'll pray for you." You get a lot of religion in these episodes where they're praying at Daphne's funeral. Oh, we'll say a prayer for you. They say about Christian burial. I think this is the most religious Dark Shadows ever got.
It's very, very, very religious. I mean, it's kind of shocking in some ways, because and I attribute that to parallel time.
Yeah.
Because the Collins family is, I don't think they're that religious, and the reason I've stated for that is that it's the leftover baggage from the Bedford witch trials and so on. They just, it's like, we've had enough of this. Yeah. We're not doing this anymore. So they haul out the Bible occasionally for a wedding or something. That's about it.
Yeah, they don't. The regular time that we know and love, there's not a lot of religious conversations.
No.
With parallel time, there is, especially 1841. I mean, there's a lot of they say about Christian burial, giving Amanda and James a Christian burial, giving anybody who dies a Christian burial. Then you're reading out of the Bible for Daphne's funeral, which is great to see, to sort of give it a different contrast. I'm not knocking it. It's really great to see because it's different. It's something they really haven't done in DS.
No, they haven't. And it makes me wonder if one of the elements of parallel time is, if one of the elements there, maybe there were no witch trials.
Yeah.
That could, because, Brutus is vaguely openly an occultist without really suffering any social consequences from it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason too is because of the secrecy around Brutus, though. Because there was keep in mind, there's no witch trials in 1795. There's no witch trials prior to that. There's no witch trials at all, like you pointed out. So, and even with Brutus, I don't think they ever really, because it's even talked about in the house, like they didn't know who put this curse on him. None of the family members knew who put the curse on him. And when they heard the name James Forsyth, what was their assumption? Oh, it must have been him. Nope, it wasn't him. They find out it was Brutus, and that Brutus was an evil man, and Brutus had these powers. So, because there was no trials, there was no investigation into occult magic or witchcraft to that degree, you never got a trial.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, here's the thing too, in this arc, what do they use Carrie Stokes for? Seance. I mean, that's something we've seen in Dark Shadows, but it's not like it's made a big deal out of it. It's not like they're turning their nose up at it doing a seance. So, and I think that's part of too where, again, there was no witchcraft trials. So
yeah, it's a really interesting observation.
It is. It's
great. So the episode we have coming up here, I find really interesting. And the thing I sort of as homework for both of us is that I consider the episode that's coming up to really 1,244. My God, we're close.
I know.
We are so close. I consider that to be, in a lot of ways, the last episode of Dark Shadows. In this, to be an episode of Dark Shadows, it has to operate in a realm where there is some suspense.
Yeah.
Okay. And suspense comes from what is coming next. What's going to be in that next episode? What do we still have to do or to look forward to?
Yeah.
And, you know, when you watch that episode, there is still this suspense, you know, that is possible of what could happen.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, because there's always that chance that something, you know, something's going to occur.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting. And I think it is an important set of glasses to watch this through.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, in these episodes, you're gonna have where Catherine and Bramwell are near the bodies of James and Amanda, and it's like they're so close they could just bump into them, and it's like they don't, but it's like you're standing kind of close to those dead corpses.
Yeah, yeah,
which I think is done for suspense.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So, how many times have you watched this last episode?
A good bit. I'm going to go back and watch it after we're done here again because I actually watched all the remaining episodes today.
Did you?
Yeah. Like I went all through it today, and I'm going to go back through it again after we're done here. So
it's big stuff. It's big stuff.
Well, I'm getting paid by the apprentice to say no, not really. No.
Well, it's a thought.
No. I just think that everybody did a bang up job in this entire arc. I know we're not done, but you really see a lot of emotion build up for this, and you understand why by the end of it.
Yes, you do.
It really, it does everything Dark Shadows always did, and it delivers the way Dark Shadows always did. So
I'm overwhelmed in a way with a sadness for a show that is on such a high level and is still going out. You know, I'm already kind of in mourning over it.
It's not over. We're just getting warmed up.
Isn't that? Yeah, I know. I can't wait to see what you got next. I'm sure you're concocting some sort of plan.
I'm concocting schemes.
Are you really?
Schemes, yes. No. Well, sort of.
What do you want to do next?
Well, we're gonna pick random episodes to discuss, you and me. I'll pick an episode. You pick an episode. What you can tell me why you picked that episode. I'll tell you why I picked mine.
I think it sounds great.
So it could be any episode, literally. And here's the thing: I'll give you mine right now. Because you said this to me. If you get past the first 10 episodes of Dark Shadows, you're hooked. Like if someone's never watched Dark Shadows,
well, like I said, any 10 episodes.
Any 10. Well, yeah. I'm picking episode 10 for that specific reason.
Oh, that's interesting. See where we are at that. That's a week and a half into the show. Maybe 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks into the show.
So
the honeymoon is over.
Yes, it's off and running. I mean, but yeah, so after 1841 Parallel Time, we could do that. I'm also doing a series, if you want to do it with me, I'm doing Masters of Disguise, which is I'm doing the Phoenix, Count Patofe, Barnabas.
As Masters of Disguise?
Masters of Disguise.
Now, what is the disguise that they have? My lamp went out again. Is the disguise the fact that they have a public persona and?
Well, they're not exactly who they say they are. I mean, Laura Collins isn't Laura Collins. She's somebody else. And there's a reason I'm getting into this. This to me, when I'm starting with the Phoenix arc on purpose, is because it was the first one. Before Marvel and DC, I think Dark Shadows really took from the pulps early on.
They did.
And I really think the one character they took from most is the Shadow.
Well, let's explore that. Jewel, tonight, though, I have to go.
Yes. I won't see you tomorrow night, but I'll see you Wednesday night, my friend. You take care.
All right. See you then.
Good night.
Good night.